Okay, I believe we're live for our second Metro Chats broadcast. Welcome, everyone. This is Bob Kasting beside me. He's our independent mayoral candidate. Nice. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So just for those of you who don't know, Metro is talking to the mayoral candidates and candidates from major parties in advance of the November 15 election. We decided to invite Bob Kasting here. He's an independent candidate, but he's made the headlines recently for lawsuits against the city involving a bike path in Kitsilano and the land at Concord Pacific that is supposed to be a park eventually. So welcome, Bob. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
We'll start off with, because you're an independent candidate, people might not know much about you. So if you could just tell us a little bit about your background, what you do, and what makes you a viable candidate for mayor.
Okay. Well, I'm a lawyer, and I've been a lawyer for some 35 years. I practice law in a couple of areas. One is administrative law, which means I act for and against government, depending upon the government and depending upon the issue. And I've been doing that for some time. I've acted inside of government. I've been counsel inside government up in Yellowknife for 5 years, and I've worked for the Legal Services Society of British Columbia, and which funds legal aid in BC. So I have a bit of a sense of how things work on the inside. I've been on the municipal council of the University Endowment Lands for a total of about 5 years, I think. And I'm in private practice as a lawyer, and I act for people and organizations in administrative law issues. And of course, I have another part of my practice as well, which is estate litigation, which really has nothing to do with what we're doing.
I also know for a fact that you are an Olympic medalist, which is pretty cool. So yes. There you go. We have an Olympic medalist running for mayor.
That's true.
On the campaign trail so far, what have you heard from people as the top issues facing the city?
Well, I think there's probably three themes. The first one has to do with people in every neighborhood that I've talked to, and I've sort of been in a lot of neighborhoods and talked to a lot of people in a lot of neighborhoods, seem to be really upset. Different reasons, but the theme is that they're a little bit upset at the way they're being treated by their city. They seem to think that they're not listened to, and they seem to think that the city is telling them what's good for them rather than asking them what's good for them. So that seems to be theme number one. Theme number two seems to be, and I think everybody can resonate with this, it has to do with housing. Housing is just way too expensive, and people don't make enough money to buy houses, and they don't make enough money to rent very much. So there's a huge difference between what people can afford and what's out there to live in. The third theme, which is a little bit more scattered, I think, is transit. Everybody has an opinion on bike lanes and transit, and subways, and cars. And I don't think there's a consistent theme about what the right answer is there, but everybody certainly has a very strong opinion about it.
We have a question from a reader on Twitter to your second point on affordability. Mm-hmm. How do you propose to address our housing affordability crisis and local and foreign investor speculation in the city? Okay, well,
the playbook of the city right now is faulty, as I see it. The starting point has to be land, because as we know, people don't make a lot of money in the city, but land is outrageously expensive. So if you can somehow build things where you don't have to buy the land, that makes things an awful lot less expensive. So the city, the province, the federal government, First Nations, faith-based groups all have an enormous amount of land in this city that's it's either empty or it's being not used the way it's used. And if you could somehow partner with those organizations, or in the case of the city, do it yourself, to create co-op housing, to create rental housing, then you'd have a much broader, deeper pool of affordable housing. That's not the sort of thing you can snap your fingers and have happen quickly, obviously, but it's something that probably takes years, if not generations, to sort out. But clearly, the way they do it now, which is to allow developers to take property, upzone it, sell it to people that don't live here or won't live in the places that they buy, is not a sustainable way, and it doesn't increase the supply of affordable housing.
That's an interesting Using the land is an interesting thing. We haven't heard that one so far. I guess that brings to the next question. Land swaps are something the city has been doing. Say a developer will give a piece of land for extra density. That has been a big thing in the downtown east side. The city is then building some social housing on that. We have another question from a reader that the downtown east side, despite these efforts from the city and despite a planning process, the neighborhood is still rife with mental health, drug, and poverty issues. The current 30-year plan to overhaul the downtown east side is controversial. What solutions or strategies do you suggest that will help the people currently living there?
There's no easy solution to the downtown east side. Obviously, there's a lot of people that are very smart that have thought about it very deeply and haven't come up with easy answers. And I can't pretend to think that I have an answer to that either. One of the things that has to happen, though, is recognition that there's two separate problems that have been collapsed into one. The housing problem, it seems like the approach that's being taken is, let's get social housing to get the homeless off the streets. And to do that, we're going to allow expensive condos to be built, and we're going to delegate a certain number of rooms that are going to be social housing. That seems to be the wrong approach, because you're feeding the top end and you're marginally helping the bottom end, but you're not helping everybody in the middle. I think that's the missing point.
So I'm going to ask you a question now about running as an independent candidate. Okay. You're going up against parties that have a lot of name recognition, such as Vision Vancouver, the NPA, COPE, and even the Green Party has built a brand for itself. And you are Bob Kasting. How do you convince people to take a risk on someone that they have never really met before?
Okay. Well, if they haven't met me, I'm hoping to be able to meet as many people as I can over the next 6 or 7 weeks. But I think the way to look at it is this. We know that the major political parties in the city are extravagantly funded by the developer community. So that's where their interests are going to lie, and that's where their biases are going to lie when it comes to what is good for the city. If an independent mayor is elected, or if independence is chosen, then you know that it's not going to be somebody who's going to be beholden to the money that funds them. You know, every time you look at one of those signs that just started popping up, you think, okay, the developers have paid for that. What do they get in return?
In your campaign?
Lots of people paying a little bit of money.
Fair enough. This is another question from a reader. It goes back to who's funding the campaigns. Would your party of one right now commit to posting all donations every year online quarterly?
Well, I think exposing, saying who it is that's contributed to your campaign is all year round is really important. It shouldn't be like it is now. You don't have to disclose who's given you money before the beginning of the election period. So you don't have to disclose who gave you the $25,000 for lunch, or who gave you the large check prior to the election year. I think there's some rule, and I'm not exactly sure about this, but I think you can give anonymous donations under the amount of $50, and over that there have to be, if they're given during the election period, they have to be disclosed.
Next question.
Yes.
You are representing one community group right now. One group you successfully stopped a bike path from going through Haddon Park in Kitsilano. Right. You are representing the Falls Creek Residents Association in a lawsuit against the city over a piece of land that Concord has promised will eventually become a park. If you were elected mayor, that lawsuit would still be ongoing. You'd kind of be suing yourself. How do you sort of make that equal out?
Well, if you are on the inside, you probably can solve the problem a lot more quickly than having to use the courts to do it.
So what would you do with that piece of parkland specifically?
Well, it was zoned as a park in 1984, and it's not a park yet. And there's another set of reasons why it hasn't become a park, and I think it has to become a park. and it's just a matter of getting it there.
Is there any, I guess there's a little bit of dissonance between someone suing the city and wanting to become the mayor. Can you just sort of elaborate on why that's an okay thing?
Well, I think probably like everybody else, I've lived in a world where a lot of people have complained about the city and what they've done and what they've done to the neighborhood and what they've done about this and that and the other thing. And I've professionally become involved in a variety of things that have let me see that, in fact, the city in many cases doesn't appear to play by its own rules. So it's just a matter of making sure that whatever the rules are being played by everybody.
All right, great. And that is our 10 minutes right there.
Okay,
so
there we go.
have Bob Kasting, like the rod, not Kasting, I've been informed. And he's going to play by the rules. So thank you very much for coming in, Bob. I appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you on the campaign.
Thank you, Emily. I appreciate you inviting me in. I'll talk to you later.